It began like an innocent whisper at the back of a stadium, echoing with the screams of thousands, a bracelet, a number, a glance, a silence. But it would spiral into one of the most unexpected celebrity entanglements of the decade. An era-defining collision between pop superstardom and the brutal beauty of the NFL. Between Taylor Swift, the queen of eras, the lyrical oracle of a generation, and Travis Kelce, the tight end with tight spirals and even tighter secrets. And no, this wasn't just a fling or a fleeting hookup or a headline grab. It was something bigger, something deeper, something that, like her iconic bridges, was going to build into a cultural crescendo that would leave Swifties breathless and sports fans stunned. Because what started as a Kill, Marry, Kiss interview in 2016, when Travis casually admitted Taylor would be his kiss pick, shrugging it off like it was nothing, would boomerang back years later in a stadium soaked in both rain and red confetti as Taylor showed up at Arrowhead, not just as a fan, not just as a date, but as a silent proclamation of war on all the doubters who thought she'd never move on from Joe Alwyn, never bounce back from Matty Healy, never recover from the shattered illusions of forever that crumbled with the last chords of All Too Well, 10-minute version, still reverberating through fans' souls. But bounce back she did, and not with a poet or a producer or a pop star, but with a man who laced up cleats and stared down 300-pound defensive linemen for fun. Because Travis Kelce wasn't trying to be an aesthetic, he was a statement, and not the kind printed in Vogue or whispered by Dumois, but the kind shouted across touchdown celebrations and locker room banter and podcast confessionals, where he, with his brother Jason laughing in the background, spilled the tea not in subtle metaphors, but in bold invitations. He had attended her Eras tour at Arrowhead, not just as a fanboy, but as a man on a mission. And he had tried, to hand her a friendship bracelet with his number on it. Not his jersey number, but his actual phone number. In a gesture so old school, so middle school crush-coded that it reignited something in Taylor that no red carpet date or clandestine rendezvous in a Soho house could ever spark. And though he failed to deliver the bracelet, because Taylor, protecting her voice before the show, wasn't meeting anyone, he threw the ball in her court, literally and figuratively, and waited, patiently, while the internet erupted. While Swift Talk ran wild with theories and heart collages and scream-type tweets about the bracelet. And all the while, Travis kept it low-key but cheeky, dropping hints on his podcast, letting his mustache do the talking, smiling slyly when asked if Taylor would like his new look, and even brushing off questions about her with a teasing grin that said more than 100 TMZ exclusives ever could, because this wasn't PR, it was pursuit. And Taylor, always the narrator of, but if Taylor Swift thought love in the stadiums would be all glitter and game day kisses, she underestimated the ferocity of the world she had just stepped into. Because the NFL wasn't the Met Gala, it wasn't the Grammys, it wasn't a soft-focus music video where the guy always knew what to say and the lighting was always golden hour. This was blood, turf, testosterone, and centuries-old tribal loyalty. And while Swifties may have flooded timelines with heart emojis and mashups of You Belong With Me and Chiefs touchdown highlights, the diehard football community was not so easily charmed. No. What began as a fairy tale quickly fractured into a battlefield as Travis Kelce's stats were dissected like biblical text. His post-Taylor performance metrics scrutinized down to every missed pass. And sports pundits who had once praised him as an unstoppable force were suddenly asking whether his new distraction was worth it. And just like that, Taylor Swift, the woman who had sold out every stadium in America, was being called a liability in one, and the vitriol came hard and fast. Not just from jealous fans or jilted exes, but from armchair quarterbacks and angry podcasters who dubbed her the Yoko Ono of the Chiefs, as if love and football couldn't coexist. As if a woman's presence alone could shake the foundation of an empire built on shoulder pads and Sunday night ratings. And suddenly every camera cut to her in the VIP suite became political. Every smile to Donna Kelce was analysed as either manipulative or disingenuous. As if this woman, who had survived Kanye, Scooter, Jake, and the British press, couldn't possibly handle a touchdown or two without becoming a national threat. And while Travis defended her subtly, Laughing off criticism and calling the media frenzy crazy, Taylor remained eerily silent, a masterclass in restraint, refusing to give the trolls oxygen, but her silence only fueled speculation. But if love begins in the bleachers, it often ends in the shadows. And as the fairy tale of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce reached a fever pitch, as headlines screamed, "NFL royalty meets pop monarch," and their every glance spawned TikToks with millions of likes and fan cams with stadium-sized emotions, a darker undercurrent began to ripple beneath the glitz, a series of murmurs that started backstage, in the long corridors between dressing rooms and tour buses, and eventually leaked into the algorithms, into forums and group chats and gossip blogs, too niche to name, but too loud to ignore. Something wasn't right. Something had shifted. And while Taylor still smiled from the suite, and Travis still winked at press conferences, the light had dimmed ever so slightly, just enough for the internet to smell blood. Because this was no longer the honeymoon phase, no longer the bracelet and ballad softness of the beginning. This was the part where reality enters the frame and tests the glamour, and for two people who existed in extremes, she in poetic grandeur, he in competitive ferocity, the cracks, if they were forming, would not be quiet. And suddenly fans noticed everything. How Taylor's body language at games grew stiffer, how Travis seemed distracted during plays, how their once private hangouts were now conspicuously absent from tabloid timelines, and then came the rumors, studio insiders claiming Taylor was in lockdown mode, writing songs fueled by recent emotional turbulence, tracks allegedly titled things like Red Zone, Drive Me Wild, and most damning, Arrowhead, and the Swiftie detectives dove in headfirst, dissecting recent lyrics, mining voice notes, analyzing her fashion choices for metaphors, and though nothing had been confirmed, the silence between them became its own kind of sound. A signal that perhaps the fairy tale was fracturing under the weight of its own spectacle, and the internet, cruel and relentless, turned quickly. Memes of Travis fumbling more than passes, jokes about the 88th guy in her discography, whispers that Taylor was too much, too big, too powerful to truly fit into a life of locker rooms and post-game interviews, and yet others defended her, claiming she was finally being herself, showing up for love, and it was Travis who couldn't keep pace, too used to being the star in his universe to truly orbit someone brighter, and when he was seen out at a Kansas City bar without Taylor, laughing a little too hard at a little too late hour, fans exploded.